Hello. Sorry,
Mr. Slots, how you doing?
Mr. Jackpots. No, that was
Mr. Jackpots. That's what it was. Yeah.
I think I'm a casino when I hear that music. That's why I said that. Welcome everyone to Geeky Geezers. I'm your host, Agent Boomer. This is my co-host, Pacelli.
Hello.
Here we all are. This is weird. Are you usually on the other side?
Yes, I can. If that's better for you, we can do that.
I mean, I'm not saying one side's better than the other, but I don't want to confuse the audience. They might think that I'm you and you're me, and that'll throw everybody off.
We could do that. Would that be better?
I want us both on at the same time. We're gonna just get it back to normal. It's freaking me out. I don't want people jumping. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to KHC 2005. Otherwise known as Spin. Who is this Netter and Troy? I like the cut of their jib. Yes, many people do. Oh no, though.
You know why you like the cut of our jib? Because we measured twice and cut once.
I've been trying to get Troy's opinion on a certain news article tonight, and he's not been spilling the beans. But we're gonna get.
Okay. At this point, we may as well just wait till we get to it.
Yeah, because I think it's exciting news myself, but we'll get to that later.
I've felt that we've had bigger news this week than that, but okay.
Nothing bigger than that. Let me see here though. The Vet Quiz has returned home from Glorious Way mission. Blood wine for all, vintage 2309. Anyway, yes, you'll like our good old days tonight, I think. All right. Curtis Selby, welcome. There's an unscripted raid going on. Hold on. Let's get to everybody here. I think I saw Rose firing here. Sorry, I meant to respond to your comment. I think she listened to our superstition stream we did a while back.
Oh, nice.
For that.
Yes.
From every mountainside, let freedom ring. I don't know what you're talking about. I've heard people are saying it's like the end of the world just happened.
These people absolutely need to pay attention and understand they are in the minority. They think that their echo chamber represents everybody, but then reality has to set in sometime.
Chris P, welcome. Curtis Selby, welcome. Connie Cleary, welcome. Hi, Netter of Netters Network. Miss anybody else? Geek Flag with Nate knows. Alright. French bonjour. Should I post that? I can't read it though. We're in the first 50 minutes of the stream. Anyway. Does text get you demonetized, just out of curiosity?
I don't know. I have no idea. I've given up trying to guess, what does and doesn't. And
Zootopia, welcome. Well, because we have to be very safe, and then YouTube will still yell. Anyway.
Yeah.
I can only stay for a little while. What? Boo!
Well, that's why we leave the stream up afterwards, and you can watch at your leisure.
We don't like this carrier. We're switching services. I don't think anybody likes any of the carriers anymore. Mark Malnikoff, welcome. Space Fraggle, welcome. Volume is high, Troy. Oh, I guess your volume's a little high.
Yeah, well, that's because I cranked it up because you guys said you couldn't hear me last time.
Anyway, it's fine. Yeah, I'm fine. But Troy's volume is not high.
No, my big problem has been that it's true when I go to edit these, I'm blasting and you're like...
I'm like little mouse.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well.
So I need to know when things are equalized, but you guys...
Want to lower it a little bit and we'll let you know?
I'm working on it.
I know you're working on a lot of things behind the scenes.
You know what I'm going to do is I'm just going to... Settings. I'm going to do...
You're good. You don't sound as loud.
Virtual audio.
Yeah.
I'm going to set it to reduce background noise and automatically adjust the levels. Maybe it'll even me out. We'll see.
All right. We'll see. Oh, it's weird. There's no background noise. There's no hum. I thought that was always me. You there?
Well, maybe from now on I will continue to do that. Reduce the Background noise.
I just finished
Okay.
watching Aliens Romulus. It was it was a good movie. Yeah, people were mixed on it. There were some good things in that. Things I liked, things I didn't like as much. I think I liked that the Red Letter Me was interesting. He said it started out it was going to be my favorite movie of the year, and by the end it was something different. But anyway, welcome everybody to the stream. I still want to see Deadpool Wolverine. I'll admit that. I actually watched.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I actually just plan to go ahead and get the DVD because I know, we've already gotten the first 2.5 films, so we need to get the third.
So I count. Yeah, I was watching Logan last night. You ever see Logan?
No, I've seen parts of it, but I haven't seen it all the way through.
Yeah, that was the grittier X-Men movie about Wolverine that I enjoyed. I was watching that last night. James Mangold directed that, and I had issues with him, especially with his stuff on Dial of Destiny. But there's no reason why he couldn't have done a good Indiana Jones movie. So I'm not necessarily even blaming
Sure,
him.
there is what he had to work with, and
Well,
the mandates that he got,
I
and
think
everything.
there are people over at a certain company, maybe
Yeah.
a certain woman in charge that interferes and makes things a lot worse than they can, because there are some great action scenes in Logan, some inventive action scenes. So I don't see why he couldn't have done. I didn't care for Logan. Well, it's fine. I enjoyed it. I looked at it as a what if, or let's be honest, with the X-Men characters, there's always like 100 different futures, right?
Right. Exactly.
So I just took it as one of those different futures. But here we go. I don't know. Logan kind of reminded me of a Clint Eastwood movie. That's sort of what it reminded me of. Mangold is the John McEnroe of movie directors. Okay. But we have
That means he's got a hot temper or something?
Probably.
Something like that?
He might take a nip from the bottle, too.
Okay.
But we're going to talk about the good old...
Well, I'm not in a good position to give anyone grief about that, so...
But we're going to talk about good old days tonight, right? And we've been needing to touch on this for a while.
We have, and this seems like the appropriate time now. Yeah.
Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
Look at that. I remember when this first aired. Remember? This was the first big spin-off from Star Trek The Next Generation. I think I was all excited.
It was the first time we had more than one Star Trek series going at the same time.
I remember this
ran contemporaneously with the chronology of Star Trek The Next Generation.
TNG. And this was going on. I think this aired in the winter, if I recall, right? First aired?
I remember, I don't remember when it first aired. I just remember that much of the season here in the Chicago area was interrupted by the local ball games. And so I never got to see Deep Space Nine at its regularly scheduled time.
Well,
I'd always end up having to watch it at midnight on Saturday or some kind of crazy crap like that. And it ticked me off really bad. I think to this day there are some Deep Space Nine episodes I haven't seen.
To this day, I've not seen the series all the way through from beginning to end. I've always seen it in pieces. Like I would catch an episode here and there. It's one of these shows I do plan one day to sit down from beginning to end and watch the whole thing straight through.
Yeah.
Maybe this will be my next classic series, because I don't think I'm going to get through X-Files season 6. I think I got to cut the cord.
Okay.
X-Files got bad in season 6. No, because nobody really wanted to be working on the show at that point. Let's not split hairs here. Anyway,
there you go.
There we go. We have our cast. We have Benjamin Sisko, who was played by
Avery Brooks.
Avery Brooks, yes. And look at this. We have Chief O'Brien. We have Jadzia Dax. We have Major Kira.
Kira Nerys, that's right.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Bashir. Look at this
Dr.
cast,
Bashir.
huh?
Yep.
And it's interesting. I think my brother at his graduation ceremony, Avery Brooks, actually spoke there. This is before he got cast on Deep Space Nine. So he had smaller parts on other shows, but he was in that. He was
a spin-off from, I forget which show it was. He got a spin-off called Man Called Hawk.
Was it like from Hunter or something like that? Or?
Yeah, I think it was something like that. Yeah.
January 3rd, 1993. I remember being excited for this because it was the winter, and it's like, well, what do I have to look forward to at the end of January on it? And then it's like, but no,
Right.
it was airing, so I got excited to watch this. Had a good pilot too, as I recall.
The pilot was, man, that was a gut punch. I tell you, there is nothing that will start off a series better than capturing people with that pilot episode. We made similar comments about the first episode of Twin Peaks, right when I talked about how the actress who played Laura Palmer's mother, just her grief at finding out about her daughter's death is just so heart-wrenching. You know, it just grabs you right there. Well, the very opening of Deep Space Nine, of course, is set during the Battle of Wolf 359.
Yep.
That great two-part Next Gen episode, The Best of Both Worlds. And you find out that Benjamin Sisko's ship, the Saratoga, where he was, I want to say he was the first officer. And again, remember, this was an era when they had families aboard Federation ships. So he was there with his wife and son.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the ship was destroyed. And he and his son managed to get out on the lifeboat. His wife did not.
You see the ship blow as they're leaving too.
Yes.
And of course, who was leading the charge was Locutus of Borg.
Of course, the assimilated Captain Picard.
So yeah, that was fascinating that they started the episode, that the series that way, and kind of a gut punch. And then of course it goes into the present where he's been giving a new commander post out on this basically
decommissioned mining, decommissioned Cardassian mining base. Near Bajor. So it's very clear that, you know, those that want to say that Star Trek was always topical and progressive and so on and so forth. Yes, that's true. When it was good, it was. And if you think of... I did not know that Rene Aubergenois was descended from the Bonapartes, but I can easily believe that. Absolutely. But the Cardassians were very much analogous to a certain national socialist group from World War II.
Yes, they were the equivalent of that in the Star Trek.
And the Bajorans would be analogous to the people that those people put into locations to think really hard.
Yes, there's a World War II style analogy.
So imagine, you know, instead of, you know, Germany getting carved up, you know, by you know the Allied powers, you know, the Federation comes in and you know, establishes a détente, tries to form you know, at least neutral relationship with the Cardassians and kind of help the Bajorans. They're trying to convince the Bajorans to join the Federation. They're kind of not too fired up because in you know, in World War II, you know, the U.S. came to help the Allied powers. Well, you know, in the battle between Bajor and Cardassia, Federation stayed neutral. They were, you know, prime directive. We can't get involved. So now we come along and say, "Hey, come join us." And they're like,
too, because the Federation had a war with the Cardassians, right?
True. That's exactly right.
So the Federation, they start stirring. They're in a war again. I think that's what the reasons was. Like, I think Picard made a point when he was going to Bajor, and they said, "Look, you were beyond our borders. We couldn't, you know." And of course, they were a little resentful to the Federation for not helping out. They had to fight the resistance on their own, right? That was basically what happened.
Exactly. Accounting Sheep says the allegory was about as subtle as a brick, as usual for Star Trek.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely fair. I mean, because, again, I made reference to the Allied forces, right? What was one of the Allied forces? Russia. And the Klingons were always the allegory for Russia. So,
One wonders why modern Star Trek didn't try doing that with the modern world, trying to make analogous races and settings.
They did, but unfortunately they were incredible. Not only were they subtle as a brick, but they were very ham-handed and very one-sided. At least back then, the writers would be try to be as even with their analogy as possible, Yeah. Especially, like I said, the Klingons being analogous to the Russians. You see that really well, not only in the original series, right, where they're the antagonists, they're just the baddies, just like the Klingons were during the Cold War, but as you go through Glasnost and all that kind of stuff, and then, of course, the meltdown of Chernobyl, well, then you get Star Trek VI, right, where you have the destruction of Praxis and the peace conference, the Khitomer Peace Conference, and all that, to the point that by Next Gen, they're like allies. They're not, friends, but they're allies, right? And it was very, very similar to what we've seen with the Russians over time.
Yeah, that's true. And it's so weird not hearing that background noise. Sorry. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I wish I'd realized that was the case. I would have...
Well, I thought I only heard it through my headphones. I didn't know even if it was coming in over the
Oh, okay.
But here is our lead actor, lead character, Benjamin Sisko, starts out as a commander, becomes a captain later in the series because, of course... We'll get to that in a little bit.
Right.
Notice how his look completely changes when things change too. He shaves his head and gets the goatee as opposed to having the hair in the earlier seasons, because his demeanor has to change a little bit too, because we're in for harder times.
Exactly.
There's Jadzia Dax. What was her race again? The Trill? Is that what it was called?
Yep. She's from the Trill, which is a joined race. They're humanoid in every appearance, but they have a kind of a symbiote inside of them that allows them to share memories and this symbiote has had many lifetimes before. So while Jadzia has only the memories of her lifetime until she's joined, now she remembers all these other lifetimes. In a way, there's almost like a Doctor Who-esque kind of analog here with the Trill. And what's interesting here is that Jadzia Dax carries the Dax symbiote, who previously had been an older man by the name of Corazon Dax, who had been good friends with Benjamin Sisko.
In fact, wasn't he like a Starfleet mentor for him?
Exactly right.
He was
yes. He had mourned the death of his friend only to realize he's kind of still alive in Jadzia, and Jadzia has all those memories. Do you remember the time you did this and that? And the time we went out?
Kazon, that's the thing.
Exactly. And so he starts referring to her as old man.
Yes.
Which is,
kind of
to most people, kind of weird, but for them, it's absolutely normal.
But she was her own personality before she joined too, so it's weird. Oh, that's right, Space Fraggle. Benjamin Sisko does become the emissary. I know you've talked about this before, how he meets these omnipotent aliens called the Prophets, which
so the
Bajorans get very angry about. There are deities, don't call them aliens.
Right, exactly. and let's be honest here. The whole framing element is that we've come to try and help Bajor, recover from their occupation and convince them to join the Federation. That's really the only reason we're here. We're reaching out to equally advanced alien species that needs to be propped up, and we want to get them to join the Federation to expand the Federation. There's all kinds of great politics there. I'm really glossing over it. But what happens is, as they're there, they find out that Bajor, or the Bajor system, and the mining facility in orbit around Bajor are very near to the opening of a wormhole, a stable wormhole in space that leads to the Gamma Quadrant, literally the other side of the galaxy. And through time and history, you start to find out that the presence of this wormhole has kind of shaped a lot of the history and mythology of the Bajoran people.
Yeah.
For example, the prophets are the aliens that live within this wormhole. They created this wormhole. They are non-corporeal beings, and we've encountered them in Star Trek before. They just don't have a body. They're consciousness. Obviously advanced because they could create this stable wormhole, but they're also non-linear. They exist outside of time and space. So they don't see time as a natural progression of cause and effect. They see all of time at once. And to be honest with you, that sounds very much like a god, right?
Yes.
There's in fact one Judeo-Christian model of God that says that it's not that God controls your destiny because you do have free will. He is just aware of every choice you will make before you make it.
Yes.
It's not the same thing. And basically that's what these entities are. And of course, Cisco does what a Federation officer does. He makes first contact with them and tries to get them to understand his perspective on linear time. And they don't understand at first. And then Cisco comes to realize he doesn't fully understand it either.
It was interesting, though, because they even did like a flashback, or not a flashback. He was just reliving the moment of him.
In order to communicate,
he was meeting his wife for the first time.
In order to communicate with him, because they are non-corporeal beings, they took the form of, you almost have to think of it as a dream. He's having a dream where these individuals take the form of his wife and his friends and people from his past to talk to him as if in a dream. But they make it very clear, we're not here trying to impersonate anybody or fool you. We are these beings. We just have no other way of communicating with you. But and it doesn't really matter which, in quotes, one of them he's talking to, because he's kind of talking to all of them at once. So when they take different forms, different people in his memory, that's a kind of communication too, right? It's like, there's a reason I'm being the father figure to you now. There's a reason I'm showing up as your wife now. There's a reason that I'm showing up as, whomever, right? And he kind of gets it now. He's talking as if he's talking to one person, and now he can follow it. And they're a little hesitant with him. You're human, you're aggressive, you're antagonistic, and suddenly they're on a baseball diamond. And he goes, antagonistic? It's baseball. It's a game.
It's a game.
And he explains how the game goes. It's antagonistic. He goes, no, it's not. It's fun. The two sides, we play and we have rules and so on and so forth, and we keep score to see who wins, and whoever wins, and whoever doesn't. It's fun. We enjoy the fact that we don't know where the ball's going to go. We try to hit it somewhere where, someone won't be able to catch it or whatever, but they might anticipate, they might not. So they say, you enjoy this not knowing what's going to happen. Yeah, kind of. And he's kind of getting them to understand how, I don't know what's going to happen, so I just got to embrace it, right? And that's when they take him back to Wolf 359. And he's in the middle of the battle again.
Yeah.
And they said, what we don't understand is if you are constantly moving forward in time, why you choose to stay here. That's not linear. And he breaks down in tears and he goes, no, it's not. See, because he has not gotten over his wife's death. And from their perspective, you have not moved on literally. And any human being would recognize that at least physically it's true. He hasn't moved on. Great character development, great story setting. This was some brilliant writing, and we haven't even gotten off the first episode.
We haven't gotten. We got to move. There's Julian Bashir, Dr. Julian Bashir.
Dr. Julian Bashir brings in all kinds of Star Trek lore with him, going back to Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, or actually even further than that, the first appearance of Khan. Yeah, the first appearance of Khan being Space Seed, where they talked about World War III, and they talked about the eugenics wars, and apparently in the late 20th century there was this, eugenics drive, to selectively breed a superpowered race, to do away with weaker people. This is actually kind of true. Look up eugenics. It's a thing that hasn't actually ended yet. It's still happening. Just saying. And because of the rise of the eugenic supermen like Khan Noonien and Singh, Earth abolished all eugenics, all genetic manipulation, all that kind of stuff. Come to find out a little bit later that Dr. Julian Bashir actually is the result of gene therapy for a more advanced human, and his parents have had to hide that. Very Gattaca kind of storyline there.
Legal in the Federation.
Yeah, it was illegal, exactly.
He was born mentally disabled, I'll put it that way, if that's the proper term. And his parents felt bad, so they loved their son. They wanted to do anything to make him better, and he remembers getting smarter, and that's because he's a brilliant doctor, but it was through genetic manipulation.
And that is a heavy story that really impacts anybody who grew up with a severely mentally handicapped autistic brother, like I did. Right.
Remember on TNG with Geordi LaForge, how he was on the planet where everybody was genetically engineered, or there was some mild genetic engineering, and he's saying, I would never exist on your planet because he was blind. I think he was born, right, wasn't he? Yeah. So he
was.
He has those implants, and they give him some kind. He's like, in some ways, he's sort of like a cyborg. He has those implants that lets him see things that regular people can't see, but he can't see like a normal person either. Right. So it was interesting, but there's Chief O'Brien,
one of my favorite characters. Oh gosh,
Colm
Meaney, yes,
who started out on TNG. He was the guy in the transporter room usually, right?
That's right. He was listed for many seasons as transporter chief, and at a convention he told a story. He's like, I got so upset. He said, I saw. I was reading the script and I'm not finding any of my lines. And I'm like, they wrote me out. And he said he went to, I don't remember who he said he went to, Michael Pilar or whoever. Yeah. And he's like, you guys wrote me out and didn't even bother to tell me? What are you talking about? Well, I'm supposed to be the transporter chief and you got this guy, Miles O'Brien. They're like, you got a name. Which is, of course, that draws to mind the whole bit from a Galaxy Quest. Guy, I don't even have a name. I'm just crewman number 6 or whatever it is.
And these two form a good friendship actually on the show.
They really do, yeah. And what's great is it's the Indian Brit and the Irishman, right?
Yeah, and it was neat, yeah. And moving on, we have Odo, who, I guess he's there by the grace of the Bajoran government, but he's not Bajoran. He's some kind of alien they found. Is that right?
Exactly, and they don't know anything about. He doesn't even remember his own origin. What he does know is that he is a shapeshifter. He can change into really any form he can think of. The problem, and I mean like T2 type. He could take the form of a plant or the floor or a bird.
He was a spinning top in one episode, remember?
A spinning top, yeah.
For child, I think, right? He did that at the end.
Exactly. The only thing is that he's not real good with the human form. This is about the best he could do as far as, face and whatnot. in theory, he figures he could, disguise himself as specific people, but he just hasn't learned that skill yet.
Yeah.
And
Become animals, though.
he later learns how to do that. At first he can't, but he eventually does. He also, at the end of the day, has to give up the physical form to rest. So he literally sleeps in a bucket.
Which is fine. I'm not judging,
No.
I mean, he was interesting. So, but I sort of considered him like an honorary Bajoran, because even though he wasn't Bajoran, because he was part of.
And he did hold rank in the Bajoran military. Yeah. So he was Mm-hmm.
And that's Kira Nerys.
Kira Nerys,
I like her better with the short haircut. I think that worked better on her than the.
Agreed.
Yeah.
This was originally a role that was intended to be for. Yes, it was supposed to be Ensign Rowe, who was played by, I want to say, Michelle Forbes, I think was her name.
Yes, Michelle Forbes.
And I don't remember why they decided not to go with her and to recast her. But this was also a great character. This was just about anybody who served in the Bajoran, or who at the time of Deep Space Nine was in the Bajoran military, had previously been part of a Bajoran underground against the Cardassians.
Fight against the Cardassians, yes.
Right. Think about the French of Dunkirk and all that kind of stuff,
And of course, then we learn about the Bajorans. This is that's one of the Kais. I forget his name. Was that Apaka? Maybe I'm thinking.
No, it was. Oh, I forget his name.
He was like their religious leader, right?
Yeah, they're like priests, exactly.
And he gets killed. Did he get assassinated? I'm not sure. And this Kai takes over.
Kai Wynn, yeah.
And what's interesting is what I like about the show. There are nuances. Not all of the Cardassians are bad, and not all of the Bajorans are good. Kai Wynn is not a good guy. No.
She's very duplicitous. You find at a later point in time, she's kind of working with the Cardassians, which is just anathema. Yeah. I mean, you're literally selling out your people in a way, but it's all opportunistic.
Yeah.
Really, really well written plots in this show. Yeah.
And
there's that wormhole. Yeah. So the wormhole, because it's a stable wormhole, it ends up becoming a hub of trade. Right, just like if you imagine a port, right?
This is a whole new area of space that they can go to that they can't.
You can literally go through it safely to the other side, the Gamma Quadrant, which of course opens up some other dangers.
We'll get
right.
There. We'll get there. But
they have to move. They literally have to move the station, because when the Cardassians here find out about it, they want to claim it for themselves. But we need to have something physically there at the mouth of that wormhole to lay claim to it. So they literally rig up the station to be able to move it with maneuvering thrusters and like a warp bubble to get it there. And they're gonna defend it until they can establish their claim. It's a really good first episode, establishing that. And the Federation says, well, they're a protectorate of ours, so, their claim is good and we recognize their claim. And if you don't like it, that means we go back to war, guys.
Gul Dukat, possibly best TV villain of all time.
He was good.
I still like the cigarette smoking man the best from X-Files, but no, he is a great villain. And the funny thing is, at the beginning of the series, he doesn't start out completely villainous. Like, he actually would communicate with Sisko. He was sort of his on-point guy in Cardassia, right?
Yeah.
And there was an interesting thing where, like, didn't an old program get released where Gul Dukat was accusing his men of banning the station, and there were, like, security protocol in place, and, like, it's like, this is an old Cardassian program. They couldn't get off the ship. So then they actually bring Gul Dukat over. Dukat just deactivate this for us. All right. So
yeah, exactly. That's very interesting too, because I couldn't help but think about the Harkonnens leaving Arrakis.
Yeah.
In Dune, right? And then when they get there, there's all these booby traps and stuff. Yeah, well, the Cardassians had done that too,
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's plain simple Garrick. Remember him?
Garrick is a Cardassian who stays behind because he's a tailor, and he has a shop. They turn this into a commerce location, so it's like a big mall, right? And you got food courts, and you got and he's got a tailor shop, and he's a very talented tailor, but it's pretty clear that he's there as a Cardassian spy. He's reporting back to the Cardassians, and sometimes they use that fact to get information to the Cardassians. Sometimes false information, sometimes real information that they need the Cardassians to have. It's very, very, very clever intrigue they build into this story.
Remember when he told a story about why he got stranded out there? Because during the occupation, he was supposed to torture some Bajoran children.
Right.
And he knew they didn't have any information. They were just telling him, you got to do it because it's an order, and he wouldn't do it. I think he actually gave them some money or some food before he can kick them out, and he got into big trouble over that because he actually decided to help some Bajoran children instead of torturing them.
What's really interesting is whenever they talk about stories during the occupation, if you're a real World War II buff, you will find analogs that they drew from.
Yeah.
You really will.
Speaking of this analog, I don't know if this is from like another movie or play if this really happened, but this was a Cardassian commander. I forget his name, but they finally,
Goldar Heel?
Yeah, and I think they caught him, and Kira's like, we finally got him. Like, he was a butcher. He was one of these war criminals, right?
Yeah, so he would have. What they claimed was he was this Cardassian who was the butcher of something or other. Think of him as being like Dr. Mengele or something like that.
And he was going like, what you called genocide, I called a day's work. Remember, he would say all those things.
Yeah, he just chewed the scene. He was like Mr. Villainous. Yeah. The only good Bajoran was a dead Bajoran, all this kind of stuff.
And we find out at the end of the episode, he is not this guy. This guy actually
He is not. And they say to him, why are you claiming to be this person who he's not? And you find out that he's got a backstory where he feels so horrible about what the Cardassians did to the Bajorans. He said, this criminal needs to be punished.
It needs
he's willing to stand in and take that punishment, so that the Bajorans can heal.
Oh, Maritza, that was his name.
Maritza, right. Thank you.
Maritza, I'm not that worm. Yeah. Was like the real name was. I'm not that worm. Yeah.
Right.
And they're interesting entries. I remember there's one where Cardassians were after Kira because we were just the servants, and you were killing servants in your bombings. Well, we had to get to the thing. And it was one of these.
Yeah, exactly.
Understood from their point of view, they weren't involved in this war. They were just, they were. But we got lots of stuff with the Ferengi. I think that was from a time travel episode, if I remember, though. But there we have.
This was an episode called "Little Green Men," where Quark, his nephew, and his brother are on a Ferengi shuttlecraft that crashes in New Mexico in what was it, 1940 something or other.
Yes, and this is where.
And you're supposed to believe this was the whole Roswell incident
thing, which is funny, actually.
It is very funny, and as I recall, they don't identify themselves as Ferengi. I'm not sure because that would have altered history or something like that. But it's some really good interaction with the humans. I didn't like the Ferengi in Star Trek Next Generation, but I love them in Deep Space Nine. They started out very poorly with. They were built up in Next Generation to be the big villains. And when they finally did it, it was executed so poorly, it was laughable.
I think they've gone to fill the role of like a Cyrano Jones or a Harry Mudd. Except it's like a race of them.
But as time went on, they did eventually get around to making them formidable villains, because you realize that some of these ultra capitalists, you have the equivalent of what's it called? The IRS agent, that shows up to audit you. And he hires nothing instead. Right, exactly. But they also have some other, when they introduce other captain characters that have their own Ferengi marauders, they're like pirate captains, right? And they're like They're like badasses. Their ships are comparable to Federation ships and could hold their own, but they're out there as privateers, and they don't mess around.
No. Quark in his relationship with his brother Rom, is that right?
Rom, exactly.
Rom is an idiot. He couldn't fix the Strava's bent, says Odo. Odo was wrong. He actually has some engineering.
Yeah, he was actually quite talented with electronics, and he passed that along to his son, who ended up becoming an engineer in the Federation.
First Ferengi Starfleet officer.
Yep.
And
the Grand Nagus. It's inconceivable.
I knew that was the actor. It's funny because I'm remembering his voice, and I'm thinking because that actor was on that show Evil as a character, and I realized it's the inconceivable guy, and that's who he was in Princess Bride. Yep. And here he is as the Grand Nagus, and I love how wrinkly he is. I love how Ferengi wrinkle different than others.
Not only is he wrinkled, look at the hair in his ear. That is a makeup effect. They had to add hair to his ears.
But I guess what I'm trying to illustrate, though, even before we get to other things from the other side of the wormhole, there's intrigue on this side of the wormhole, just with the races there.
Oh, yeah.
The Maquis are big on this show.
That's exactly right. So the Maquis are ex-Federation officers like Rolaren, who have left the Federation over
land
disagreements about what they're doing or not doing against the Cardassians, giving up territory to the Cardassians out of appeasement, so on and so forth. I mean, it would not be unlike some, soldier or civilian in the United States moving to Eastern Europe to take up arms in a, hypothetical battle against a former ally, from World War II. Just saying, just hypothetically.
Okay. Well, I just took it as that they just didn't agree with the decisions of the Federation.
Yes, that is true. Yes.
And I remember and this is why Benjamin, he didn't like the guy already, but then he made a point that, the Federation are worse than the Borg, and he gave some reason for why the Federation are worse than the Borg. And when Sisko heard that, he got incensed. Because, of course, he hates the Borg because the Borg killed his wife. And
Exactly.
This thing he serves. And it's funny the conflict that Kira's even talking to him. Is like, these guys are going after Cardassians. Why are you attacking your own people? These are your own people. She was actually sympathetic with their plight, actually, which I thought was interesting. Where she's looking at it from the point of view of Bajorn. She's like, I understand why these people are also having issues with the Cardassians.
Exactly.
But I did want to make a point, though. Somebody made a point that there was an episode where the Magus got realigned by the prophets. I guess to be generous and to go against like Ferengi teachings about profit above all, like they made.
Yeah,
which I thought was funny. But here we go. We first see our first members of the Dominion at the end of one of the
Jem'Hadar.
Season 2 or Season 3 when they show up. And they're from an organization called the Dominion. Yep. We don't know what the Dominion are. In fact, first we think these might be the leaders of the Dominion. We find out that is not the case. These are just one of the races that make up the Dominion, which I would argue is like an evil federation, basically.
Yeah, I guess you could absolutely see it that way. Very totalitarian.
Yeah. Yes.
This is the Jem'Hadar are a literally genetically created race, created by the leaders of the Dominion, the founders.
Yes, the founders.
And what's really insidious about it is those little tubes on their necks dispense a drug called Ketracel White.
Yep.
And Ketracel it contains certain elements they need to survive. So without it, they will die, and it's also performance enhancing. So it, makes them somewhat super soldiers.
It's a substance they're addicted to, so it's how to keep them in check too.
But they are also mentally, programmed to see their leaders as gods. They accept any command that they give as though it's holy writ. And in fact, their motto is "Victory is life." In other words, yes, Mark's quoting it there. Victory is life. They will happily die rather than be non-victorious, right?
They were very anxious and excited to fight Klingons. I remember they were saying that, right?
Yep.
This is
Another warrior race, exactly.
They were very interested to see. They didn't care as much about the humans. They wanted to fight Klingons. I remember that. What was his race's name again? I forget, but that's the great Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah, I believe his character's name was Wayoon. And again, a race where they get cloned. So if you killed off Wayoon, you'd get another Wayoon in the next episode.
This was anti-Prime Directive, what the Founders did. What happened was one of the Founders was running from some people who wanted to destroy him, and he had to hide, and these ape-like creatures hit him for protection. And the Founders rewarded this group of more primitive creatures and basically gave them intelligence and other things and raised them up for helping protect them from
the Vorta. That was their name.
The
Vorta.
Yes. Which that was interesting. Were these the Breen?
The Breen, yes.
They came later in the series, but they also ended up allying themselves.
There is a theory that, and this is not established, it's only been speculated, that the Breen may have been the first contact race for the Klingons, the race that the Klingons came to call the Herc, but we are not certain of that fact, so don't know. But there's a lot of Klingons that really, really hate the Breen.
Jem'Hadar believe they are already dead and they go into battle, they reclaim their life. Interesting. But of course, I don't know if I put her picture up here, but of course, well, we find out who the Founders are. It's a big twist.
Right.
If you haven't seen the show, I won't spoil it for you, but
yeah.
I don't want to. I feel like we're giving a lot of spoilers already. The war with the Dominion breaks out because they can come through the wormhole, and of course, they've already taken over the Gamma Quadrant. Now they want to take over. What is it? The Delta Quadrant? That's Star Trek.
Well, it's the Alpha and Beta quadrants that actually the Earth is in the Beta quadrant, right. But the Alpha and Beta quadrants are like right next to each other. So our sphere of influence is kind of through both of them.
Klingons end up getting involved in this war.
Yep. So this is Martok. He loses an eye in battle against the Jem'Hadar, and there's some very interesting intrigue before we find out some of the secrets about the Jem'Hadar. They have replaced some of the leaders and sometimes even lower ranking people in the various factions with infiltrators, one of whom is Martok, and it causes a good deal of miscommunication and strife between the Allied forces.
Right, because basically
until they figure out who the imposters are.
Okay, come on, son. Okay, well, we all know the Founders end up being Odo's race, the Changelings.
Right.
And they can look like anyone or anything, and so they able to infiltrate Federation, Space, Klingon Empire, and they can pretend to be the other side. It becomes a real
And like I said, their race can take the form of any individual. It's just that Odo has not figured out how to do that himself yet.
Yep. There, the Romulans and the Cardassians get involved. I think this was the Tal Shiar and the Jem'Hadar, right? Not Jem'Hadar. Yep. What was the Obsidian Order? Yeah, Tal
Obsidian Order. Yeah, exactly.
And which were they're both secret police societies in both their civilizations. And they have a plan to wipe out the Founders. They found their home planet, and things go horribly wrong, and then they get wiped out instead.
Of course.
And this was a major thing on Star Trek. These were two major organizations in the lore that are gone after that episode. This was a harsh series. You got to see Federation ships, like top Starfleet ships, getting torn apart in this war. I remember there was one kind of terrifying episode where the ship was being run by young cadets, and Jake Sisko and Nog are on the ship. And basically they're obsessed with just taking out this one Dominion like battle station. They know how to do it. They've worked it all out, and they don't want to go home and get reinforcement. They want to take it on themselves and get the glory, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of shows that our nice civilized humans that are so much better in the future. Well, not necessarily. When war hits, some of the baser instincts pop out, don't they? And
Exactly.
of course, that whole fight against this thing goes horribly wrong for them too. Remember that?
Yep.
It's just
Yep.
it's almost a heart wrenching, because you're watching this series and you're thinking the Dominion can actually win this thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is like one of the most formidable foes the Federation has gone up against. I won't spoil how this show ends.
And when they finally come up with a weapon they can use against them, it's a doomsday weapon. And they have a moral quandary over it. I mean, it's kind of like World War II. You know, do we drop the bomb and wipe out whole populations or not? You know?
Never give a group of college kids a starship. The Red Squad, right? Yeah, like I said, they could have done a series out of it, but it only lasted like 3 episodes before they got it. But it's funny.
Well, they did end up making a series out of it. I mean, they call it Lower Decks, or what's the other one? The other animated one.
Oh, I didn't watch that one.
Yeah, I didn't watch either of them. I don't know.
I heard the other one was the best of the Paramount Star Trek series, the new ones, but I didn't bother with it because I don't know. I just didn't care.
Yeah, it's like when I told my wife the other day. You know, I've had a rough number of bowel movements, and the last one I had was the best one I had.
Now I'm thinking of that line from Glenn Ross. You ever take a dump that makes you think like you slept, that makes you feel like you slept for a year? Remember that?
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway,
Prodigy. That's it. Yeah,
Prodigy. But here we go. I did want to mention too on this show, there's all kinds of intrigue on this show.
Yeah,
this war doesn't last a season. This lasts a few seasons. I remembered there was a point in time where Galron got angry and wanted to go to war with the Federation during this whole fracas. Remember that? And they were fighting Klingons again for a period. It was just, and it's funny. I didn't mention him with the regular, but Worf eventually shows up on this show.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought there was a fascinating scene in one episode where Dax, confides in Sisko, says, "Worf, what's wrong with him? Why is he acting this way?" He says, "He's intimidated by you," when she tells Sisko, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah.
That's how tough Sisko is.
Yeah, exactly.
Was intimidated by him because Sisko got.
Yeah.
He had to, because they were in a war situation, and I don't think that was his natural state, but he did rise to the occasion. He's on the front lines of this awful conflict the Federation gets dragged into. But
don't worry, guys. I'm going to get myself some prune juice.
Funny. But I did also want to mention, though, there's also other intrigue on this. Like, there's religious intrigue that goes on during the series, too. Especially because there's a sect of Bajorans that believe in these things called the Pa Wraiths. Remember them?
Yeah. They'd be like the shadow versions of the
prophets.
Of the prophets, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Gul Dukat even ends up leading a cult.
Right.
For a while, and it's that's the thing about this show. It never missed, especially later on in seasons. There was always something going on. If it wasn't War at the Dominion, it was this other side thing. It was good writing. One of the best Star Trek series. Probably the most underrated Star Trek series too. I'll say that. But
I agree. And like the other shows, it starts out slow. All this intrigue that we're talking about doesn't start out right away. We have a lot that we get hit with in the first episode, but then the next couple episodes are pretty, almost kind of lame, actually, in a lot of ways.
It helps with world building, though. I'll say
it does.
Though, when they get into the big conflicts, though, they at least have their world building down, where we know these are the stakes, these are these races, what they think, blah, blah. And I think it's definitely a show that did improve as it went on. And again, I do have to watch it from beginning to end. I like the idea of the war in season 6 and 7. Okay.
One other thing I need to say is that I have always complained that Star Trek had a real problem with their marketing. When they should have been putting out toys, action figures, costumes, role-play devices, and role-playing games, they were never doing it. And it was right around, just before Deep Space Nine, they opened up an agreement with a game company called Decipher. They put out a role-playing game and a customizable card game. And the role-playing game ended up getting really, really good, to the point that they were putting out source books for For example, the Dominion War. And the material was really good. They came right to the edge of creating new continuity and new canon without actually doing it. They implied things, and they said, if you want to go there, you can, but, they never really went beyond what you saw in the show, which is a lot easier to do when you've had, 7 seasons of Next Gen, 7 seasons of Deep Space Nine, the 3 seasons of the original series, a bunch of movies, they're starting Voyager and whatnot. There's a lot to work with there as opposed to, oh yeah, we just have 3 seasons and we're going to make stuff up beyond that,
And that's the leader of the Dominion.
Yeah, they referred to us as the female changeling. We didn't have a name. They didn't take names. They had a group consciousness when they would turn to goo. They literally on their planet existed in a pond all together. And when they wanted to communicate, one of them would come up in this kind of a humanoid form. And if they touched each other, they could pass on all the knowledge of the group mind. So literally, when Odo finally meets them, he's able to get back his memory of having been one of them, that he had been sent out by them as a scout, I suppose. Mm-hmm. But he also passes something back to them as well, his feelings for the people in the Federation, the potential that they have, and so forth. The founders, yeah.
Not upon the Great Lake. Okay, well, I guess there's a lot of creatures. The
Great Link, actually. The Great Link is what they call it.
Oh, it could have been a Great Lake, too. A great link. That was a Great Lake.
Yes, that's what they referred to it as.
Anyway, but that we could talk about Deep Space Nine probably for another 3 hours. It's a very, I want to say it's kind of a dense Star Trek series, and there's probably a lot we already missed. Like we didn't even talk about the episode where they combined with the Trouble of Tribbles. Remember that they did the Forrest Gump
Troubles and Tribulations. Yes, where they actually touch on the fact that the Klingons look different than Worf.
And I liked it when Worf said, "Worf, that's a Klingon. We don't like to talk about it." Remember, that's what he said.
They're going back and they're sitting there, and he says, "Can I get a Raktajino? If I hear one more person ask for a Raktajino, we don't carry Raktajino." Well, who asked for Raktajino? The Klingons. Klingons where? And she goes, there, and there. And they look at the Klingons, and then they look at Worf, and Worf's like, they are Klingons. And they're like, what happened? Was there some sort of a genetic manipulation or some sort of a massive accident or something like that? And Worf just goes, we do not discuss it with outsiders.
Yes. and then they did the what do you call it? They did the instead of the holodeck where it was like a Sam Spade type thing on
Oh,
BNG,
right.
It was more like James Bond, right? It was
and Dr. Bashir. I think the episode that they introduced that was Dr. Bashir, I presume, or something like that.
Bashir. I'm Bashir, Julian Bashir.
Julian Bashir, yeah, exactly.
He was like a Bond character, yeah, I remember that.
It was another one of those holodeck type episodes, right? Yeah, where something goes wrong and the people inside become their characters and whatnot, and he's gotta end the scenario. He's gotta win the scenario without anyone dying because they would die in real life. And Sisko is the villain. He's the
Dr. Noah, Dr. Hippocrates.
They call him Dr. Noah, but he's like Dr. No or Scaramond or whatever the James Bond baddie is.
He's got the Asian suit.
And it's brilliant because all the characters are together and they have the big denouement scene where he tells what his whole big plan to destroy the Earth is. Right? He's going to wipe out all life, and I'll be the king and everything. Yeah. And the scenario is supposed to go that the James Bond character is supposed to kill off all the baddies and survive and win the day and save the world. But if he kills everybody, these are all his friends.
So he has to.
So he thinks it through and he goes, "Okay, go ahead, destroy the world. I'll join you."
Yeah.
He's like, I mean it. I'm going to destroy the world. Yeah, I'm going to let you. You want me to press the button? I'll press the button myself. He presses the button, the world is destroyed, and they're all standing there, and he's like, I am the ruler of the world. He's like, yes, you are. You win. Game over, and that's how he saves everybody.
Yes, I remember that. But atomic Klingon culture came from Deep Space Nine, soldiers of the Empire, the Sword of Kahless, once more into the breach with Kang, Kor, and
I didn't even want to go down that road, Mark, because I'll be here for the next 10 hours. Yeah.
Marries Jadzia. That's interesting. Yeah. And,
you know how I am with that stuff.
Those were done right. So definitely classic science fiction series. You know, when you wonder why they're trekkers out there in the world, it's because of shows like Deep Space Nine. So
yeah,
there we go. And you know what?
I miss shows like that. We don't have Star Trek like that anymore. We haven't for a very, very, very long time.
We need something. But that's why they call us the Geeky Geezers, because that's what the show should be. In normal times,
right?
Not during a culture war time, this would be a show just about celebrating all the cool new geek culture coming out. But I don't think it seems to have gotten...
There's very little to celebrate. All we can do is keep you apprised of what's happening and, well, commiserate about it.
But, you know, you either make good stuff, Hollywood, or you go under. That's the decision you have to make now. And but this is the Geeky Geezers, and we're going to move to our first story of the night. Unfortunately, some in remembrances.
Yep.
Quincy Jones, Grammy-winning producer for Michael Jackson and film composer, dies at age 91.
Yeah, he was a big deal in the music sphere.
Yeah, so Quincy Jones, who distinguished himself over the course of a 70-year career period in music as an artist, band leader, composer, arranger, and producer, has died. He was 91. Jones died Sunday night at his home in the Bel Air neighborhood of Los Angeles, according to a statement shared with Variety by his rep, Arnold Robinson. A cause of death was not disclosed. Tonight, with full but broken hearts, we must share the news that our father and brother, Quincy Jones passing. And although this is an incredible loss for our family, we celebrate the great life that he lived and know there will never be another like him, the Jones family said in the statement. He is truly one of a kind, and we'll miss him dearly. We take comfort and immense pride in knowing that the love and joy that were the essence of his being was shared with the world through all that he created, through his music and his boundless love. Quincy Jones' heart will beat for eternity. Jones' eminence in the entertainment community was so great he went by one-letter handle, Q. Bred in the world of jazz, Jones became one of pop's music most formidable figures. He collected 6 of his 28 Grammys for his 1990 album, Back on the Block, and was a 3-time producer of the Year honoree. To many, he is probably best known for his production collaborations with Michael Jackson, which began in 1979 with the singer's breakthrough solo album, Off the Wall, which has sold an estimated 20 million copies internationally. It's chart-topping sequel, Thriller, in 1982, for which Jones took Album of the Year honors, plus a Record of the Year trophy for the track Billie Jean, remains the best-selling album of all time, with worldwide sales estimated in excess of 110 million. Jones went on to work with Jackson on his #1 1987 release, Bad. In 1985, Jones made international headlines as the producer of USA for Africa's We Are the World, the single devoted to African famine relief. Jackson co-authored the song with Lionel Richie and led its all-star cast of vocalists. Jones was the first African-American to pen the score for a major motion picture. 1964's The Palm Broker, and went on to receive Oscar nominations for Best Original Score and Song. In 1995, he received the AMPAS Jean Hersholt Humanitarian Award, another first for a black artist. He made his mark on TV as an executive producer of the 90s sitcom The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which brought rapper Will Fresh Prince Smith to prominence as an actor. In addition to the 2022 reboot of Bel-Air, he executive produced the comedy scenes In the House and Mad TV, the 10-hour 1995 documentary The History of Rock and Roll, the 2014 documentary Keep On Keepin' On, and the 2020 adaptation of The Color Purple, directed by Blitz Bazawuli. I'm assuming that's a play, right? Jones received a Tony Award nomination in 2006 as producer of the musical adaptation of The Color Purple. Okay, that's what it was. In the publishing world, he founded the respected hip-hop magazine Vibe, which spawned a TV spinoff in 1997. He also was named Variety's Philanthropist of the Year in 2014. I almost want to say good deed doer. That's what the wizard said. Talk about a career. My goodness.
Yeah.
Major force in American entertainment. Left his mark on the world. He's survived by a brother, 2 sisters, 6 daughters, including actor Rashida Jones, and a son. Well, there we go.
Yep. Speaking of sisters, let's go ahead and
move on to Prince's sister. Tyka Nelson passes away at 64.
Yeah.
Earlier this week, we announced that Quincy Jones died, and now Prince's sister, Tyka Nelson. I'm saying her name right?
Yeah, and she was his only full sister. He had a couple of half siblings.
Understood. Has also transitioned. The singer was 64 years old, and her cause of death is currently unknown. The news was shared by Nelson's cousin, Charles Chaz Smith, in a brief social media post on November 4th. Our family is very saddened to share the news of my cousin, Tyka Evan Nelson, who passed away. Tyka Evini Nelson, who passed away this morning, he wrote. Tyka's son, President Leonard Leo Nelson, also reportedly later confirmed his mother's death to the Minnesota Star Tribune. The singer was Prince's only full sibling. They were both born to the John L. Nelson and Maddie Shaw Nelson. The musical genius rang in the family since Tyka also followed a similar career path to Prince. The Minnesota-based artist released 4 albums in total throughout her musical career. They include Royal Blue, released in 1988, Yellow Moon, Red Sky, released in 1992, and Brand New Me, released in 2008, and her last album, Hustler, released in 2011. Tyka made the decision to retire from life in the public eye and was set to do a farewell concert in Minnesota in June. However, she fell sick. I'm getting older, she said to the Tribune of her decision at the time. I really wasn't a singer. I'm a writer. I just happened to be able to sing. I enjoy singing. On the topic of writing before her untimely death, Tyka was composing a memoir about herself and her family. In June, during an interview with the Tribune, the singer said the book wasn't finished and there were still a few more chapters to go. During the interview, Tyka also opened up about how she deals with loss, especially the death of her legendary brother who passed in 2016. I'm one heck of a grateful person who had wonderful people in their life. I miss their wisdom, she said. Tyka continued, if I could travel the whole world and meet people that loved him, I'm kind of the last link to him for some people. It's like giving back to him. As far as I'm concerned, he stayed because they loved his music. The singer is survived by her husband, Maurice Phillips, with whom she shared 6 children, daughters Danielle Phillips, Crystal Phillips, Chelsea Phillips, and sons Richard Phillips, Sir Monteith, Leo, and President. All right.
Yeah, it literally, and this is why I wanted to bring this up. I did follow her on the what's the Instagram, and she, I guess she's absolutely right. In a way, she was like the last link to Prince. She was like his biggest fan. She was always posting, stuff and pictures and merch and stuff, that was Prince related. The only album of hers that I actually did hear, I actually don't have it in my collection, but it is the 88 album Royal Blue. She was very talented. It was very clear that she and her brother were cut from the same cloth. I am a little surprised that she didn't, but it just wasn't her passion to go down the same route that her brother did. As she said, she was more of a writer. I honestly feel like there's a lot of very talented music writers out there that the only reason they even ever get into making their own music is sometimes out of a little bit of frustration that people aren't making their music the way they want them to. That's exactly why Elton John, for example, said that he got into performing. He really had just wanted to be a writer. And I think she just was like, forget it. I want to write. And a lot of her fans, myself included, were kind of speculating when she kind of pulled away and she said, I'm getting older, and she got sick and, canceled appearances, that she, might have something chronic going on. And we were hoping she would finish that memoir. So for fans, it's kind of really rough. But I just wanted to get a mention out there. This was important to me. I didn't expect it to be important to anyone else here, but, just wanted to get that one out there.
4 albums is nothing to sneeze at. Many of my favorite bands have only had about 4 albums. It's sometimes you don't get more than that.
And she actually wrote some more music that was performed by other people. They were never really huge hits, but I'm surprised that the article didn't talk about them, but that's fine. I mean, they got the major points out. She was more than her brother's sister, but for fans of her brother, she was like a link.
Like
so
the last link.
Yeah.
I understand. Troy, if it's important to you, it's important to us. Well,
that's nice of you. Thank you.
But yeah, Prince's sister, Tyka Nelson, passed away. Rest in peace.
Yep.
And we have another one. This
one is probably for a lot of the people here, probably the biggest one. Yeah.
Tony Todd, an actor who played the killer in Candyman. Well,
that's right. That's right. He did.
It was something more than a killer in that movie, and appeared in the Final Destination franchise and Platoon, among more than 240 film and TV credits spanning 40 years.
A lot of Star Trek appearances.
Died November 6th at his home in Los Angeles. He was 69. Yeah, I was talking to you about that on Friday.
Yeah.
He actually played an adult version of Jake Sisko on DC.
Yes, he did.
They did one of these episodes where, like, Jake lived his life and became older, but was trying to fix something that got wrong in the past, and then he fixed it, and it kind of reset everything. We don't have the old Jake Sisko anymore. There's like a time travel thing, but he played like what Jake Sisko was going to be as an adult, basically. Yeah. But his reps confirmed the news to Deadline, but did not provide a cause of death. Born on December 4th, 1954 in Washington, D.C., Todd pursued acting at the Eugene O'Neill National Actors Theater Institute and Trinity Rep Conservatory, where he honed his skills and developed his commanding style. Among his first screen roles was playing the heroin-addicted Sergeant Warren in Oliver Stone's Best Picture Oscar-winning Vietnam War classic Platoon.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Todd went on to guest on such popular 1980s and 90s series as 21 Jump Street, Night Court, MacGyver, Matlock, Jake and the Fat Man, Law and Order, The X-Files, NYPD Blue, Beverly Hills 90210, Xena Warrior Princess, and Murder, She Wrote, and Star Trek The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. He also recurred as the pesky TV news reporter Matt Rhodes on Homicide: Life on the Street, and as Gus Rogan in more than a dozen 2013 episodes of The Young and the Restless. Okay. Oh, he was on The Young and the Restless. That's interesting.
Yeah.
All the while, Todd continued to act for the big screen. He appeared in 1980s dramas Lean on Me, Colors, and Charlie Parker biopic Bird, starring Forrest Whitaker. His best known film roles came during the following decade. The 6'5" Todd starred in the 1990 remake of Night of the Living Dead as Ben, the role played by Dwayne Jones and George Romero's iconic 1968 original. His next big role is likely his most famous, playing the mythical title creep with a hook for a hand in Candyman, a character reprised for two sequels in 1995 and 1999.
Yep.
And that's a classic horror movie. I do recommend it. I believe based on a Clive Barker story, right?
Yes, I believe so. Yes. And he suffered for the role. He got a good number of bee stings, including inside his mouth, performing that role.
That's dedication. Yes. Tony Todd was the Vincent Price of our time. He will be deeply missed. Rest in peace.
That's a great analogy, actually. Right. Yes.
He is, because he's perfectly fine looking man, but he was one of these actors that could do the creature roles.
Not only did he do a lot of horror, right? And he could play very, very creepy.
Yeah.
But he was also a prolific voice actor.
Yep.
He had that, you recognize that voice, again, just like Vincent Price, right? And he was also able to play very kind, sympathetic roles as well. Again, just like Vincent Price.
His Ben character in Live and Dead remake is very sympathetic because, of course, he's agitated Mr. Cooper. But when he goes down and sees Mr. Cooper's daughter who's bit and the wife there in the basement, he actually is very sympathetic to their plight. He's not, this is Cooper's wife and get out. No, he actually feels very bad. And he's like, we're going to try to get them out of here because he knows that it's probably bad that his daughter was bit, So it's not...
Right.
There's some nuance in that character in that version of the movie. Of course, Dwayne Jones's portrayal was also excellent, but I just
exactly.
But no, rest in peace. This kind of came as a shock. I keep thinking Tony Todd, was he a DC animated voice actor? Because
he was.
He had to have been in something.
I just, let me see. Well, one thing I did want to mention before we move on, a role that obviously was overlooked by this article, another Star Trek role, at least I consider it to be a Star Trek role. He played Admiral Ramirez in Axanar, which has yet to be released. I know, it's still out there. It's supposed to get released any day, right? This is the third major actor from that we've lost. We've lost Richard Hatch, and we lost Gary Graham. Now we've lost Tony Todd. I'm wondering if J.G. Hertzler is going to still be with us by the time they get this damn show put together and put out there. Sorry, just smoke from another fire. I feel pretty strongly about that.
It's fine, but you can still. I've seen it, and I think you sent it to me myself, and it was very good.
The Prelude to Axanar is great. He's got this really great speech in it, so I am kind of looking forward to what he might do. But
he has played the voice of Darkseid.
Darkseid, that's
later
right.
Animated. Michael Ironside also played the voice of Darkseid in the classic.
He did the voice of Venom for Spider-Man 2, the video game.
The voice of
Venom.
Oh, cool. Okay.
He did the voice of Zoom in The Flash, the TV series.
Oh, right. Okay.
I have no idea who Scareglow is from Masters of the Universe, but that's a voice that he did as well.
Scareglow?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Actually, he did Darkseid a number of times. Reign of the Superman, and Justice League Apocalypse.
Didn't care as much for those, but nothing against his voice acting though, obviously. But
he did a lot. I'm just realizing there's a lot of things that I wouldn't have known him from because, either I don't play these games or wasn't that into. Like he did some Marvel. He did the voice of Blade in Marvel Superheroes Squad Online.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. But rest in peace. I mean, he is one of the legends of. He is one of these iconic horror actors.
And I should point out, his voice still lives on right now in Star Trek Online. He is the voice of Rodek, which is the name that Kern took after a certain storyline, but he plays Rodek in Star Trek Online, and you can still interact with that character in Star Trek Online.
He's still doing another role. It's in that new Indiana Jones game coming out.
Oh, that circle of the Great
heavy.
Circle.
Even though it has a certain German group in the game, I think he is actually a different villain, and he's like the major heavy in the game. I think.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got actually. He has 11 projects still coming up. 10 plus that Indiana Jones. He's got Final Destination Bloodlines, which is in post-production. The Oath, I don't know what that is, 30 to 45, Tuesday's Flu, The Raven, Werewolf Game, The Witching Hour, Cigarettes and Coffee, Inventors, and The Pitchfork Retreat. These are all projects that are either in post-production or are completed. All coming out in 2020, late 2024, early or sometime in 2025.
Okay, cool. Oh,
so he is still not done working. My gosh.
Samuel Proctor thought you meant the old school Spider-Man 2 game for like the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox and GameCube. Not the new Spider-Man game on PlayStation 5.
Exactly, the PlayStation one, right.
It gets confusing. That was the Spider-Man 2 game based on the movie Spider-Man 2, which I enjoyed a lot. Because one of the first things you have to do, and you have to do all these different missions in the game, one of them is delivering a pizza on time. And when you deliver the pizza on time, it does that Italian song.
Cultural appropriations! I'm offended!
I know. Well, that's the thing. People didn't care about that stuff back in the early 2000s. People were able to just have fun with a fun video game.
Honestly, that is so on brand for Spider-Man. I probably would have laughed my butt off.
Yes. Oh, rest in peace, Tony Todd. Anything left to say about him?
No. Well, I mean, plenty I could continue to say, but let's go
I'm
ahead and
sure
move on.
you'll be revisiting his movies and TV shows and various
Almost
years to come.
certainly,
And
yes.
I did like his role in those Final Destination movies. He played the Undertaker that would tell the teens about, no, you were supposed to die, and death's going to come after you now because it has to, because basically they interfered with the plan, and you're going to get killed some other
That character was so enigmatic, right?
Yep.
Because for all intents and purposes, all he was like an undertaker, right? Or he worked in the morgue, right? The city morgue. But he was somebody who understood death, like beyond what you would expect, your average, mortician to know. It's like he knew it on a spiritual, mystical level, right?
Yeah.
And it did cause you to wonder, is he actually an avatar of death?
Interesting.
In fact, gosh, I did actually. Well, I didn't meet Tony Todd, but I was at a film premiere with him. I'm trying to remember. It was I think it was Candyman 2. Here in the Chicago suburbs. And he was up in the mezzanine and he gave a little thank you speech and whatnot. And I don't think he even stayed for the movie, to be honest with you.
He didn't.
But, seemed like a real nice guy, but, you got things to do, you got things to do, whatever. But the other thing that was great about, really all those Candyman movies, they were filmed here in Chicago. So for that Candyman 2, we actually knew one of the extras that was in the movie. So, yeah.
Cool. But apparently he had fun scaring Wesley Crusher.
Good.
On that note, rest in peace, Tony Todd. You'll always be with us, though. All right.
Absolutely.
Time to move on to the now we're off the in remembrances. Now we're on to the geek news of the night. Sega delisting over 660 classic games from virtual
That's
stores.
60 games. Yes.
Yes, including Jet Set Radio, Crazy Taxi. What's going on, Sega? What you doing here?
This is why you should own physical media.
Or you should buy, or at least buy this digital media and try and get them off Steam while you can, because that's what these are. But that's the problem with games, though. You say own physical media with games, but some of these games, to get them in their physical cartridges, you would have been around in the 90s. So I don't blame kids for buying these things digitally if that's the only way they can get them. Now, to be fair,
there are ways.
There are ways, and frankly, people are going to have to go look into those ways. But let's move on. Over 60 classic Sega games are being delisted from digital stores, including Crazy Taxi and Golden Axe and Jet Set Radio, starting on 6 December at 11:59 p.m. Or 7:59 a.m. on the 7th December for those of us in the UK. The affected games will no longer be available to purchase. Of course, if you already have a game in your library, it will remain available to download and play as and when. In a frequently asked question, Sega noted select individual classic titles will remain playable for those of us who have a Nintendo Switch Online subscription. So that's basically Nintendo's answer to like Netflix, where you can download the games, but you don't own them. It's like you pay a subscription service, you can download these classic games. For a more premium fee, you can get the Sega Genesis games and Nintendo 64 games. But no explanation was given to why these changes are being made. Eurogamers contacted Sega for more. The full list of titles set to be delisted this December can be viewed below. These are a ton of Sega Genesis classics, usually found in the Sega Genesis Classic Collection. So you have things like Alien Soldier, Alien Storm, Altered Beast. I don't think I'm going to read all 60 of these. But a lot of.
So you mentioned Altered Beast. Is there the possibility that some of these games have some licensing issues or something like that?
No, because they would just live. No? Sega owns these outright. There was a licensing issue with Sonic 3 and Sonic 3 because apparently it was discovered years later that Michael Jackson had composed 2 of the tracks in the game. And apparently there might be licensing, so they had to re-release it with the prototype tracks because Sega originally made their own tracks. Michael Jackson was a big fan of Sega and their games. They even made a Moonraker game. In fact, Space Channel 5 Part 2, which is on this list, has Michael Jackson in it.
Wow.
He said, "I want to be in Space Channel 5, the sequel." So they put him in there as Space Michael, and he's with the other characters in the
That's
game.
funny. That's funny.
Yeah. But titles be listed on Xbox. Xbox, because of their backwards compatibility, tend to have a lot. So Altered Beast, Crazy Taxi, Golden Axe. I assume they mean the Golden Axe collection, which is a really nice collection. It comes with the arcade Golden Axe and the 2 sequels.
Right.
Shinobi, Sonic the Fighter, Streets of Rage. I have some of these already.
Let me ask you this, Boomer. Is this that they're being unlisted and you won't be able to buy them any longer? But if you've already bought them, you can still play them?
Theoretically, yes. I think if you bought them, you can still download them on your prospective console you own them on. I know we're having another story about that in a minute. So,
yes.
But theoretically, yes. You should be able to own them, and I would imagine if you have them on Xbox, you can still re-download them even on the current Xbox that's out. And according to this next article, you should be able to download any of these games on your Nintendo Switch follow-up console, which we'll get into in a minute. I don't know why they're doing this. There are 2 reasons why they could be doing this. One, they're planning to do re-releases of these games in different collections.
Oh,
that's
okay.
a possibility. So you'll just be able to buy them, but just in a different way. I prefer it when companies like when they release the new collections with the old stuff, and then you can decide which you want to buy, and then they can eventually phase out the old stuff. This makes me nervous. Because I did want to. I always gave Sega credit for more than a lot of other companies out there. They make a lot of their older games available. A lot of the old Genesis titles that they owned or had access to, they have re-released that they're able to without licensing issues. Obviously, Spider-Man and X-Men and Ghostbusters, we haven't seen those Sega Genesis games be re-released because that's a licensing fee.
Right.
But most of their stuff that they owned outright, they've re-released in one way for you to purchase digitally. They created Sega Genesis mini consoles you could buy a few years back, which had like 40 games on them. You could plug them into your HD TV, which we rather need. So this makes me a little nervous. I'm wondering if there's new leadership over there at Sega. I don't want them to become like other companies where they throw things in vaults never to release again. But time will tell. I don't know. But let's.
I have a couple theories, but the fact that they haven't made announcements about it makes me think I'm completely off base. One marketing reason to take off classic games is to pull the whole, that old Disney vault concept. We're going to take them down, and you won't be, only the people that have them will be able to play them. Oh, we're putting it up for a limited time. Get it while you can, kind of a thing. But they would usually say they're planning to do that before they implemented such a thing.
Usually, yeah. But I mean, we've been given this warning now. I do know that they're planning to re-release 5 new titles in their classic franchises, probably coming up soon. It could be they're afraid these classic titles will take away from people buying the new stuff, which makes 0 sense to me. If anything, I think it would spur on people to buy the new stuff more,
Yes,
here's the new
exactly.
Golden Axe.
I like this old game. Now they're I just started playing it. Oh, look, there's a new one. I should get that too.
So, isn't Sega in Japan? Yes, but I've heard there's some guy over there, some guy that used to work for Disney now.
Oh boy.
Who wants to make a MCU out of the Sega franchises? I just heard this. I don't have official news on this, so don't take my word for it. It's just something I've heard. But yeah, Sega is supposed to be a Japan company, but a lot of these big Japan companies have kind of had Western influence in them, so that's a problem. We'll see what happens, but no more Jet Set Radio. I couldn't get the Jet Set Radio I downloaded on the PlayStation 3 on the PS4. It wasn't backwards compatible, so I have it on the
Yikes.
I have it on PS3, and I came with the PlayStation Vita version, and download only, because unfortunately some of these games don't ever get physical releases now. And Jet Set Radio was a troubled re-release because they had to put new music in it because they didn't have licensings of some of the older music. Because it was like, I think some Japanese pop bands were in there, so they had to switch out. It's a game where you're in this dystopian future and you get to go around spray painting things on roller skates. It was actually the first game to implement what we called cell shading.
Yes.
In fact, which I think even got used in the actual animated movies also. But like they did that one Star Wars series that used cell shading that nobody watched. But let's move on to our next article, which is they didn't have a picture with the article, so there you go. Super Mario Brothers Wonder. Don't come after me, Nintendo, which is a still image. Switch 2 will be backwards compatible. I was happy to hear this. So this makes me more positive about buying their successor console. Although Nintendo isn't really ready to reveal the Switch 2 just yet, the company's president Shutaro Furukawa has confirmed some big news during the last corporate management policy briefing. Nintendo Switch software will be playable on the successor console. Along with this, it's also been confirmed Switch Online will be available on Nintendo's next generation hardware. Here's the translated message shared on Nintendo's Japanese social accounts. This is Furukawa. At today's corporate management policy briefing, we announced that Nintendo Switch software will also be playable on the successor to Nintendo Switch. Nintendo Switch Online will be available on the successor to Nintendo Switch as well. Further information about the successor to Nintendo Switch, including its compatibility with Nintendo Switch, will be announced at a later date. What are you waiting for? Sorry. I'm getting impatient.
I understand.
2024 hasn't sucked enough. Can't you give us something to look forward to? What I'm hoping with this next console, Nintendo has released games on the Switch. Some run well, some chug a bit. Do you understand? Like, the console itself is not powerful enough to handle the frame rates. If I buy this Nintendo Switch 2, will it fix these problems? It'll be a more powerful hardware. Will then clean up and fix these issues with the games I've already bought. If we could do that, they probably have a guaranteed sale from me on getting one of these. I mean, when I'll get it, I don't know. I very rarely buy any console at launch, but who knows? Maybe within the first year, I'll pick one up if it's got a good launch lineup and it's backwards compatible. Because that's all I want is an upgrade. Because I like the Switch, but I want a more powerful Switch.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
One that's as powerful as the PlayStation 4 from last generation. I'm kidding. They're behind with power. Nintendo's been behind with power since the Nintendo Wii. That's when they decided.
I'll take your word for it. You're the expert on these things.
That's when they decided, nah, we're not going to go for power. We're going to go for the motion controls instead. Nintendo does a lot with controllers. That's where they make a lot of technological improvements. They're very good with controllers. But yeah,
I like Darth Plato. Well, glad my fellow paisanos, Mario and Luigi, are going strong. Yeah, exactly.
They do not mess with them too badly. That is classic Mario and Luigi. You can play as a bunch of different characters in this game, but you still get to play as Mario and Luigi in Super Mario Brothers Wonder, which was the big hit last year. And I don't know, maybe there'll be a new game announced for the Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever they're going to call it. They're probably
real quick. We better say goodbye to Samuel Proctor. He said his phone is about to go at.
And it just went out now, didn't it? Funny man.
Take care, Samuel Proctor.
Anyway, Nintendo Switch 2, and hopefully my Sega Genesis collection that I purchased on the Nintendo Switch 1 will be playable on my Nintendo Switch 2, as Sega has now deaccessioned those from the store. And why did I pick it up on the Nintendo Switch? Because it was like $6 during a digital sale. I'm like, okay, I'll pick that up. I'm obsessed with Sega games because I never owned a Sega Genesis growing up.
Yeah.
So I bought several collections over the years. I bought both the Sega Genesis minis.
We do have a question.
We never got to own, you know? Yes.
We do have a question in the chat that I don't know enough about Mario lore to be able to answer. Is that the kidnapped girl from Donkey Kong, the arcade game?
No, she's not in this game.
The blonde princess that you see at the top there. That's not the same girl?
No, that is Princess Peach. You can also play as Princess Daisy. Princess Daisy made her debut in Super Mario Land on the Nintendo Game Boy.
So which girl was it that was in Donkey Kong?
That was Pauline. Pauline is now a mayor of New Donk City, as we saw in the game Super Mario Odyssey, which also came out on the Nintendo Switch. She is the mayor.
So much lore.
And she sings a musical number in a slinky dress with a fancy hat on her head.
Well, she's got my vote.
Yes. And the funny thing about Pauline, they've had her show up in other games. In one of the Mario versus Donkey Kong games, I it's the thing about the toys again, right? Where they're selling the mini Mario toys, and Donkey Kong's at the unveiling. And I think Pauline's doing some cutting of ribbon ceremony somewhere. And then Donkey Kong sees Pauline again, and his eyes turn into hearts, and he grabs her again.
Oh, gosh.
And then go after him again. It's like he didn't learn anything.
Right, exactly.
I did not know much about Peach. Was not in Donkey Kong. Nope, she's what was known as She's who was known as Princess Toadstool in the original Super Mario Brothers game, and later in Super Mario Brothers 3. And you could play as her in Super Mario Brothers 2, though some people don't care. Why do they wear overalls? Who? The Mario Brothers?
Because they're plumbers. Plumbers wear overalls. They're very practical.
The movie, they explain their funny outfits. It's part of our brand because they're trying to start a plumbing business in Brooklyn.
Right.
Just be glad they're not showing butt crack.
Yeah, that's the thing about overalls. They don't show you any butt crack. Exactly.
But here's the big news of the night. Paste it. Come on. Come on.
I did paste it.
I feel like the country's heading in a new direction, so we can maybe be hopeful about our treasure franchises once again.
I do believe that the country is moving in a different direction. I do not believe that Disney is moving in a different direction.
I normally don't do Star Wars news on this channel, but this was too big to skip over, and we're going to hear Troy's opinion on this in a minute. X-Men alum, X-Men alum Simon Kinberg is preparing to visit a galaxy far, far away. Lucasfilm is developing a new Star Wars trilogy, with Kinberg set to write and produce the 3 films with studio chief Kathleen Kennedy. This will begin a new series with new characters after Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, starring Jay-Z, Ridley, John Boyega, Adam Driver, and Oscar Isaac, concluded the original 9-chapter Skywalker saga in 2019. Though plot details haven't been revealed, Lucasfilm has disputed the notion, first suggested by Deadline in their initial report of the forthcoming trilogy, that Kinberg's movies will continue the story that George Lucas began with 1977's A New Hope, introducing Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, Harrison Ford as Han Solo, and Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia. What did that sentence just say? Is it basically saying Disney says, no, it's not connected to those? Why don't you just write that instead of just...
I'm telling you, they're putting a lot of double speak into this article because it's a bunch of crap. They're trying to make something out of nothing.
Listen.
Go ahead.
Disney currently has Jon Favreau's The Mandalorian and Grogu, a continuation of the Disney Plus series about the helmet-wearing bounty hunter played by Pedro Pascal, on the calendar for May 22nd, 2026, along with 2 untitled Star Wars movies set for December 18th, 2026 and December 17th, 2027. So it looks like 2026 will be a big Star Wars year. Lucasfilm has several other Star Wars projects in the works from filmmakers such as James Mangold, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, Tyka Waititi, and Donald Glover. Wow, I didn't think the Taika Waititi Star Wars movie was still happening.
It's not.
But no,
and neither is the Lando movie.
Okay.
I mean, that's the funny thing. They're actually referencing films that we've already been told are not happening. Including the Rey movie, which has also been put on indefinite hold.
Okay, new installments of the space opera series from director Patty Jenkins, Marvel producer Kevin Feige, The Last Jedi director Rian Johnson, Game of Thrones creators David Benioff and D.B. Weiss were announced over the years, but never came to fruition. Well, that was those movies.
Yeah, this one's altogether different, right? Exactly.
5 years since Rise of Skywalker, the latest Star Wars theatrical release, Lucasfilm has launched Disney Plus. I know we don't already know about this. Okay, let's go on to Kinberg.
Well, no, wait a minute. Hold it right there. It's been 5 years since they put that movie out, right? Like, it's been so long since we've had Star Wars. Bull crap. They have filled their freaking Disney Plus with series after series after direct-to-streaming series. We're up to our eyeballs in crap Star Wars.
Okay. But this is a trilogy. Like, we've had the standalone movies in the series, but this is a trilogy.
A trilogy of Disney crap that you can eat stale popcorn as you watch.
Kinberg is best known for writing and producing a number of X-Men films for 20th Century Fox, including 2006's The Last Stand, 2011's First Class, 2014's Days of Future Past, 2016.
I do have to say, I love you guys. Mananui says, who honestly cares? Darth Playo says, Rian Johnson can get lost. Taika Waititi can take a hike.
Listen, you guys are just haters.
Geek flag. No one cares. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And Darth Plato, I think, is most spot on. I suspect this story is fake. So again, going to past his prologue, right? This is now November. We just left October. What happened in October over at Lucasfilm? Anyone know? Anyone? Bueller?
No.
Bueller? Kathleen Kennedy's contract came up. And we've seen this over and over and over again. There was no announcement about what was happening to her, right? When that happens, we pretty much just assume that she has been renewed again. And they're doing it silently, and they're not making any announcement. And how does she leverage to make sure she continues as the head of Lucasfilm? She announces another big project. She does. Not Disney, not officially Lucasfilm. It comes out like this.
Okay. Jessica Hardo, what did you miss? You missed this announcement, new Star Wars trilogy from the director of X-Men, Dark Phoenix. Did you see X-Men Dark Phoenix?
Yes. I'm
You
sorry
did.
that I did. Yes.
Not Last Stand. Dark Phoenix.
Yes. Well, okay. You're right. I did not see all of Dark Phoenix. It sucked what I saw.
It was bad. I felt like it was one of these movies that a 20th Century Fox
Especially since I had read the Dark Phoenix saga.
Yes.
This was not that.
Apparently they messed it up a second time and this guy was involved.
Yeah, that's not exactly the best endorsement on your CV to fandom fans.
Dark Phoenix, I wondered too if it would have been as bad if 20th Century Fox had still been headlining it. Maybe they would have fixed some issues with it before it went to theaters, but Disney didn't care. But I don't know. We'll never know because at that point Disney already owned it, and Disney put it out and it tanked because they didn't do anything with it. Apparently this guy worked with Lucasfilm on Disney Channel anime series Star Wars Rebels, which he co-created with Dave Filoni and Carrie Beck. And he consulted with director J.J. Abrams on 2015's Star Wars The Force Awakens. So he's not really a new voice, guys. You're acting like he's new to this. He's a new, fresh take. It seems
no, he's absolutely the old guard of Disney Star Wars. That's why we know if this ever got made, it would suck.
So I have a question. This is a new trilogy, but this is not related to what? The Skywalker series, which I guess makes sense because they're all dead.
Right, exactly. There are no Skywalkers left.
Except for Rey, who stole the name.
No, that's a Palpatine. There's no Skywalkers left.
Yeah, you can really tell they planned that out, because wouldn't that have been a big reveal at the end of your second movie that Rey was a Palpatine all along and that the Emperor was still alive? Wouldn't that have been the big cliffhanger? Instead, they just shoved it in part 3.
Actually, I heard somebody suggest, and this is actually kind of funny, the way that they could continue is have Rey be the villain. Like, she won, the Palpatines won, she really is, the inheritor of Palpatine's spirit or whatever through the dark side. And some new hero's got to rise up to take her out. They'll never do that, but that's about the only way they could manage this.
The only way they could do anything would be to set it 1,000 years after the Skywalker saga, and maybe you can pick and choose, and maybe it's legend now, so they don't know the full story either of what happened back then, and just start with new characters, which is probably what they should have done with the trilogy, with their new Disney trilogy to begin with, since all they wanted to do was tear down the old stuff. Just start in a new era then.
Yeah. Here's something else. Jesse Guajardo says, Troy, I hope they let the guy who made Rogue One make the new Star Wars because David ruined it. He makes up BS. I'll tell you what, keep an eye on Retro Blasting. He's getting ready to release a Rogue One retrospective. He agrees that Rogue One is the best Star Wars that has come out in the Disney era, but he still has problems with it, and his biggest problems are the ones I would have if I had known what he is going to share with everyone.
Apparently, there was an entirely different cut of the movie.
Yes,
which was completely. That might have been a better movie. Yeah,
and he's going to take us through that because through a little bit of forensic work, he has picked apart all of the previews that were released for Rogue One and compares each and every scene to the actual scenes that we get in the movie.
Right.
And he points out what story elements are clearly different and why they would have been better in the original cut.
Yeah. Well, look, nothing is going to change while Kathleen Kennedy is there.
I agree. But as I said, I think this is the leverage she's trying again, because it's been a winning formula for her so long. She surreptitiously, through backdoor channels, announces a new project that Disney has not signed off on, and Disney and Lucasfilm are not saying anything about this. And I don't know. They keep her around until another project comes and they lose another couple $100 million. It's been a winning formula for them so far.
It's ridiculous. Okay, but there's the Star Wars news. Let me know when they actually. I'm not even going to comment on this until they. I don't even know if I want to even revisit this until they have actually started shooting it. So you weren't excited?
No, not even not even a little bit.
It was a slow news week, people. Apparently, the Hollywood was reacting to something else that happened last week, so it was hard getting news. But I found enough stuff this week to fill us up. Look, we got Joker 2 was disappointing.
No kidding.
I thought we were done with this too. I'm like, I think I said this last Joker 2 story. Here we go, but no, that it keeps rearing its ugly head again. 2 leading Wall Street analysts pressed executives at Warner Brothers Discovery about the possibility of breaking up the troubled media conglomerate as executives tried to defend their vision of operating the home of CNN, the Warner Brothers studio, and the Max streaming service for the longer term. Your company is trading like a company that's declining in earnings, said Ben Swinburne, a media industry analyst with Morgan Stanley, during a call between Warner Brothers Discovery executives and investors on Thursday. Forged out of the combination of unscripted media kingpin Discovery Communications and the remaining assets of the former Time Warner, Warner Brothers Discovery has been plagued by an immense amount of debt and issues pertaining to the health of its traditional studios and TV networks. The company is trying to fix these operations even as it tries to build a new venue to capture consumers who are increasingly migrating to viewing their content favorites on demand via broadband. But it keeps meeting up with new distractions along the way. During a call, executives acknowledged that the performance of recent release Joker 2 had disappointed and could weigh on performance in its next quarter. Warner Brothers Discovery also took a charge of more than $100 million tied to its game division, with executives noting that they would start to focus more intently on core franchises and cut back on the number of re-releases. You guys had one of the biggest hits last year, which was Hogwarts Legacy. Everybody loved it, sold like gangbusters, and you didn't take that as a hint of what you need to be doing in the future with your games division. I don't understand them. Inconsistency also remains an issue at our motion picture studio, as reinforced recently by the disappointing results of Joker 2, said Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav during the call. Warner Brothers Discovery said Thursday the net income came to $135 million, or 5 cents a share, narrowing from a loss of $417 million, or 17 cents a share a year earlier. In comparison, Foxcore, a smaller rival, posted net income in the most recent quarter of $827 million, boosted by political advertising tied to the 2024 election that was its local stations. Warner Brothers Discovery remains heavily invested in the entertainment-focused cable networks, which are losing subscribers as they migrate to streaming. Oh, they're still tied to cable, aren't they?
Mm.
I think we've talked about this. The company has no large broadcast assets in its portfolio. The investor call was peppered with questions about the viability of maintaining the company in its current state, with Swinburne asking Zaslav and Warner Brothers Discovery CFO Gunnar Weidenfels about the value of keeping Warner Brothers Discovery's current portfolio intact. What are the benefits of owning all these companies? Swinburne asked, while Bank of America securities analyst Jessica Reif Elric queried the company's operating team about the possibility of spinning off some assets or acquiring others. We see the benefits of running this company on an integrated basis every single day, said Weidenfels. What does that mean?
No idea.
This is new pressure to consider other possibilities. Comcast last week said it would study the prospect of spinning off its cable networks, a maneuver that could include CNBC, MSNBC, and Bravo, among others. What does that mean, spinning off? Does that mean cutting loose?
You know, I've been hearing mixed things out there in the market. I've heard them saying it absolutely will not happen. I've heard others saying it looks like it might. So I don't know.
Even Zaslav acknowledged that Warner might have to face consolidation down the road. The media industry is reckoning with generational disruption from its traditional businesses, he said. Even as consumers are being pushed to take subscription to too many apps and services, such a dynamic is not sustainable, he said, adding that this is an industry that really needs to meaningfully consolidate. He pointed hopes for a looser regulatory environment under the incoming Trump administration in 2025. It's too early to tell, but it may offer a pace of change and an opportunity for consolidation that may be quite different, that would provide a real positive auxiliary impact on this industry that's needed. Oh, that's interesting that he said that. I don't understand Warner Media as a company. I think I started out, they're the ones that were pushing for streaming, but yet they have all these big stakes in cable, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No.
Did they expect people were going to hold on to both?
No idea.
I
do think that Jesse Guajardo makes a great point. He says Warner Brothers staff currently in charge of the company are a bunch of morons that can't take a hint, even if it kicks them in the tchotchkes. And he's not wrong, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand. I often feel, too, that this is a company that is not passionate about anything it does anymore. Do you feel they're passionate about these upcoming projects, or is it just about making a buck? Because which they're not very good at doing either.
I was just going to say, if it's about making a buck, they're failing at that, too.
Because they have no passion. I was watching Batman Returns earlier. I was revisiting that, hadn't seen it in years, and I remembered Batman Returns was just Tim Burton directing. Whatever you... There was excitement when that movie released. There was all stuff around it. I guess they were thinking there'd be excitement for Joker 2, even though nobody bothered to preview the movie.
Yeah.
Just released it. And now they're pushing a new DC universe with this new Superman movie, kind of when Marvel is struggling. So I don't know. I mean, I know Midnight's Edge has talked about this stuff too, but I don't know. Is there anything Warner Brothers is releasing that anyone is excited about?
No.
I guess I'll watch that Beetlejuice sequel at some point, but I don't understand them. All right. Why did you pick this story? You excited about this movie?
I thought you did.
I did. I'm just messing with
you. Just going to say, I don't...
It's already getting toward 11, and I'm like, you know something?
I know what you did the summer before last summer.
Am I kidding? Did I even like the first I Know What You Did Last Summer? I think the only reason young men went to see that movie was because Jennifer Love Hewitt was in it in certain scenes with rain.
I love Jennifer Love Huge Tits.
I didn't say it, you did. Okay, I was trying to be Lola. That's what they called her any back in the day. Okay, Lola Tun, Nicholas Alexander Chavez, Austin Nichols, and Gabriette have rounded out the cast of Sony.
Can I just say, based on this picture,
yeah,
neither of the girls are, well, they're not Jennifer Love Hewitt. Let's put it that way.
I don't know. I think everybody just, actually, I'll be good. I don't know who my audience.
Yeah.
I people look different generationally. Remember?
Dark Plato, I know what you did last stream. Yeah, exactly.
That'll be the name of the movie. They should involve the internet. That'd be cutting edge, right?
Right.
Of course. Um. Okay, Jonah Harking is with Freddie Prinze Jr. set to reprise role. The original film star Jennifer Love is in talks to return. Well, she's not going to return for this. Jennifer Caton Robinson is directing the follow-up to horror film franchise, which is written by Sam Blansky and Caton Robinson, off a draft by Lee McKendrick. Neil Morse is producing. Sony Pictures will release the film in theaters July 18th, 2025. All right, so there's the new cast. Tung is currently in production on third season of Prime Video's acclaimed drama, The Summer I Turned Pretty, based on the New York Times best-selling trilogy by Jenny Han.
Was that last summer or the summer before last summer that you turned pretty?
Okay. Not these movies again. What do you mean not these?
I know, right?
And already with killing. Come on, man. We had the Gordon's Fisherman killer in the first movie. That's what I used to call him. That's what it reminded me of. The Gordon's Fisherman.
The Gordon's Fisherman.
Okay, I don't care. I'm sorry. I don't know why I picked this. Let's move on. We got Ridley Scott to talk about. I thought
yeah, one of my favorite people in the entertainment industry.
I did this to troll Roy, but to be honest with you, the article's not as bad as the interview wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. But he had some interesting. I did put out a couple clips. Ridley Scott will never stop directing. Shut up and go make another movie. What do you think of that, huh?
I'm sure I don't have all of the context, so why don't you tell me about it?
All right. Well, I don't know. He's not going to quit. He says Clint Eastwood's still making movies and he's in his 90s. So I that's what he said. But I wanted to there was a quote from this article I thought was interesting. So the interviewer says, "You also said earlier that you regret not getting an ownership stake in the IP of the Alien and Blade Runner franchises, unlike how Cameron and Spielberg have done with some of their work. I made Alien and Blade Runner, but then I moved on. I should have locked them up as Spielberg would have with Jurassic Park and everything he does and Cameron has done. Studios paid for them, but there's no way of locking yourself into ownership during the negotiation. I watched Alien 2, 3, and 4 and realized, oh, you just ran that firmly into the ground. Then I went back to former 20th Century Fox chief Tom Rothman and said, listen, there's a way out. We should resurrect Alien with Prometheus. They made $500 million and now probably $1 billion with all the resales. It's not what happens at the box office. It's what happens after the box office. Then I went back with Alien Covenant, and that was a big and ambitious and maybe too intellectual to play as well. It still did $250 million, and I still stupidly didn't lock it up. I don't blame me because I'm busy. I blame a couple of other people, which is why we parted company. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
I have to circle back because in terms of running Alien to the ground, you included Alien 2 with 3 and 4. Obviously, many fans, myself included, loved the second movie, Cameron's Aliens, so I caught you. And then Ridley Scott grins mischievously. Nah, Jim said to me, I've watched the effing Alien 19 times. I can never be as frightening. The cat's out of the bag. We've seen the shark. So I'm going to go more military. And that's what he did. But it was sweet that he said that. Aliens was fun. And then 3 and 4 just evaporated. And ironically, with that evaporation, they had the help of digital. Alien had no digital at all. It was just a guy in a rubber suit. And then the interviewer says, I saw your 1979 original on the big screen a few years back, and I could not believe how well it holds up in a theater. The visuals, the sound design, how the ship is a living, breathing character that's like an extension of the creature. And then Ridley Scott says, it's better than any of them. You can smell when it's real. I will say I have seen Alien on the big screen twice. They have done re-releases. One at a dinner theater in Orlando and another at a local Regal. They did an Alien anniversary re-release, and there is something to be said about seeing Alien on the big screen. Mm-hmm. It does hold up very well, even all these years later. It has that. It does immerse you. So but
well, no, here's why I will not be watching any Ridley Scott movie. Any Ridley Scott movies ever again. He can go sit on a hot poker sideways.
because he said he asked historians, "Were you there when Napoleon was at the execution of Marie Antoinette?" Well, then shut the f up, right? He wasn't there.
So were you there in the future to see all of this alien BS crap? Go F yourself.
I didn't care for his Prometheus and Alien Covenant. I liked Michael Fassbender in those. He's very good in those movies, but it just didn't quite gel. Say what you want. The first one was every bit the classic it deserves. One of my favorites of all time.
Yeah.
And his Blade Runner re-releases have been good, where we know for certain that
therein lies the problem. That first movie was so good, and everything else is just, I can't think of anything better to do, so I'm going to crank out more crap that reminds everybody, hey, remember you liked that one movie I did?
What I don't get is he was talking about Blade Runner, how you should have locked that down. Blade Runner was a bomb at the box office. There was no franchise there. Blade Runner became a cult hit over many years with people going and discovering it. And then it eventually got a sequel, very big budgeted sequel, which unfortunately also flopped. And I actually blame the fact that came out the same weekend as a certain movement with the words "Me and Two" in the title. I think people were fed up with Hollywood at that point. And I think the movie suffered because of it. That might have been.
And honestly, they have not really recovered.
No, and now they're doing a Amazon series, which I really want to skip because you want to stick the knife in and twist it. You mess with my Blade Runner. That's like messing with another franchise I love called James Bond. Here we go.
Oh, here we go. Actually, I do have to say this particular quote. I dig it.
I'm not as harsh on Daniel Craig in this as I thought I'd be. Daniel Craig and his queer.
I would probably say the same thing, to be honest with you. I think most of the fans are saying it.
Well, yeah, after what they did in the last Bond movie. Anyway, Daniel Craig and his queer co-star, queer's a movie he's in, Drew Starkey, tested their knowledge of one another during a game of How Well Do They Know Each Other with Variety's Tiana De Nicola, and Craig's blunt response when asked about the next James Bond actor is going viral. Simply put, Craig does not care. The actor played 007 in 5 Bond movies from 2006 to 2021. His tenure ended with No Time to Die. If you were to pass the James Bond torch, who would you love to see play him? Variety asked 2 actors. It prompted Craig to laugh and respond, I don't care. Craig told the BBC in 2022 that he had no regrets about his decisions to stop playing James Bond, explaining, I had an incredibly fortunate 17 years of my life making this. I literally had to spend the next 20 years of my life trying to unhook it all and try to put it in a place because it was incredible. I left it where I wanted it to be, and that was given the chance to do that with that last minute movie. Okay, well, I didn't care for the last movie. In fact, I didn't care for the last 2 movies. The actor was in his late 30s when he was cast as Bond in his first 007 movie, Casino Royale. This decision, however, did not receive unanimous praise. Longtime James Bond casting director Debbie McWilliams told Entertainment Weekly back in 2021 that she felt sorry for Craig after his casting led to extreme blowbacks from press who thought Craig didn't fit the part of Bond. It was unbelievably negative to have McWilliams say about the reaction to Craig's casting. The press response was awful, and I felt sorry for him, but in a funny kind of way. I think it almost spurred him to do his damnedest to prove everybody wrong. The whole way through the film, stuff would come out about how he couldn't walk and talk, he couldn't run, he couldn't drive a car properly, so much stuff, which was completely and utterly untrue, she continued, and he just kept his head down, got on with the job, and the film came out, and everybody went, oh, well, I think we quite like him after all. That's interesting, because that's a similar situation that George Lazenby ran into, where the press was out.
Yep.
And Craig rose above it. I remember at the time I had nothing against Craig's casting. I figured, I'll give him a shot. We'll see how he is. He's not Brosnan, but maybe he shouldn't be Brosnan. Maybe they should be going in a different direction. And to be fair, for the first 3, I was fine with them. It's just when we got to Spectre, and I really started to feel like with these movies, I feel like I'm going to a funeral for the character with each of these movies. And of course, we know how the 5th one ends. So
yeah, exactly. I was just thinking that.
I thought that this was like an extended origin. Like we had Casino Royale, which goes right into Quantum of Solace, which was okay. I don't hate it as much as other people, but I know people that was kind of a rush job. And then we got Skyfall many years later because of the whole MGM not being sold problem. So we weren't getting the quick succession of these like we used to. I did enjoy Skyfall, and I thought, okay, now we have Moneypenny. We have we have a new M played by Ray Fiennes. Okay, so they're now kind of setting up. This is now we're over the hump finally, and it's going to get back into regular Bond movies. And then no, they did not. And you know what? I got to save this for the second stream we're doing with Michael French. So we'll wait on that.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
But I have my own opinion of Daniel Craig. I was fine with the first three, and then it kind of falls apart. But Napoleon himself was a source for his life. It's the most widely read book of the century. It's also slop. A lot of people take it at face value. Same with Wellington. No truth there. Interesting. Okay. All right, and our final story of the night: Stranger Things. Finally, what was taking so long? They are not teenagers anymore.
No, they really aren't,
not
are they?
Teenagers anymore, dudes. It would have been one thing if there was a time lapse and it could be their college years, right? But that's not even going to be the case here because the way the last season ended, it has to take place right after, right?
Right.
Because a situation happened in the town. Okay, but
I may have to go back and rewatch just to catch up and remember. It's been so. What has it been? Like 12 years since the last season?
No, not 12 years, maybe 2 years. The fifth and final season of Stranger Things will debut in 2025. Netflix announced on Wednesday to celebrate November 6, 1983, aka Stranger Things Day. The day Will Byers from Noah Schnapp was abducted into the Upside Down. The streamer also released a video revealing the titles for the final 8 episodes, which will conclude the supernatural story of Hawkins, Indiana. The episode titles are The Crawl, The Vanishing of, The Turnbow Trap, Sorcerer, Shock Jock, Escape from Kamazat's, The Bridge, and The Right Side Up. Okay. Some of these titles allude to earlier episodes. The Vanishing of, revealed by the name fully obscured, invokes the series premiere, The Vanishing of Will Byers. Fans online have already speculated the new abductee could be Holly Wheeler, the younger sister of Mike, Finn Wolfhard, who has reportedly recast with Evil Dead Rise actor Nell Fisher, but Netflix has not officially commented. Okay. So
the other thing that I've heard fans speculate on is that the title of that final episode being The Right Side Up implies a happy ending? I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I think after all they've been through, they deserve a happy ending. They've been through a lot on that
Remember,
show.
the bad was the Upside Down.
Pardon me?
The bad part was the Upside Down.
Right. So calling the last episode The Right Side Up implies some sort of a happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens. And, there's no saying that they can't just set other shows in this universe too, right? I mean, it would involve different characters, but they could still choose the 80s setting for other shows if they wanted to, right?
Yeah, they could. And, I think this... And as long as when you say in this world, it's not all having to be tied to this specific
don't do that.
Event and stuff.
You might have things referenced maybe, but don't have it
I would say
stand alone. So
in a way, this could... In a way, not in a literal way, but in a figurative way, this could be the same universe as the Stephen King universe. It can't actually be because they reference Stephen King's books. So we know Stephen King's stories are fiction in this universe, but stories like that could absolutely take place in this universe.
One thing I love about Stranger Things is though it is someone who didn't live in the 80s view of what the 80s was like. That's what it is. And it's taking
But it is surprising how many times it really does hit on what the 80s was like.
It's too 80s. It gets things down like the bullying. The bullying was very bad in the 80s. It gets that down. I mean, I'm not saying bullying isn't bad now. I just think bullying is now different than it was. It's probably just morphed into something else. But there are things about it where, like in the first season, some guy has an Evil Dead poster on his wall.
Yes.
Now that would be great, but no one I knew had an Evil Dead poster.
Right.
You can't go into a store and buy an Evil Dead poster. There probably were some around.
Yeah.
That makes me want to buy
Well, actually,
okay.
I'll tell you this. The people that had stuff like that usually were ones that either worked at or knew someone that worked at a movie theater and were able to get
it wasn't
the
something
the
a common
posters.
family would have as a kid. You'd have something
Exactly true.
If you're lucky, you'd have the Starship Enterprise from a Dynamite magazine article, and you'd have a poster of that.
Good point. Yeah.
You're not going to have some of this other stuff. But, I mean, I'm nitpicking. Like, I remember Dragon's Lair. I did think it was funny that at premiere where they were playing Dragon's Lair, because I remember. In fact, I think I did a couple days about Dragon's Lair. But yeah. Oh no, that was the rose-colored glasses we did on your channel. That's right.
Yes. Oh god, because that game. It's fun to watch a playthrough of it on YouTube. It is not fun to play.
That's like Simon on steroids, basically, right?
Kind of.
And that was the first 50-cent arcade game, I remember. That wasn't a quarter. It was 50 cents.
Yeah.
When you're a kid with no money, 50 cents is more than...
Was a lot of money, yeah.
Yes.
That could have been at least a comic book.
A comic book, or...
Think about it, a comic book
a candy bar?
is good. Well, a candy bar. A comic book will take you, depending on how you read it, 15 minutes, half hour to read. And then you can put it in your collection and then take it out again and read it at the end of the year when you reread the whole year's worth of comics over again. At least that's the way I did it. So, that was a good investment of 50 cents. Whereas playing a game of Dragon's Lair, you got less than 5 minutes of gameplay and you're done.
It's a burp in the wind. That's what it is. But it was fascinating to behold. You were like, wow, this is like nothing I've ever seen before. But we talked about that on the Rose-Colored Glasses days. Contemplating how Stranger Things started about the time I left my ex-wife, and now I know it's been 7 years later. It's been going on a while, and I do blame the strikes and the pandemic probably didn't help with that. We might have gotten this wrap-up sooner, but I hope they end on a good note, and let's just do your best, everyone, all right? And,
absolutely. It is something I will say that I am looking forward to, unlike so much of what's coming up. This one I actually am.
Yeah, I'll look for it. And that brings us to the end of this week. Wow, this was a doozy of a stream.
Yep.
I had to pick a light news week when I knew we were doing Deep Space Nine because I'm like, we didn't even touch on everything. That was like the Cliff Notes, not even that, of Deep Space Nine. But later tonight, we have The Other Side of Midnight on Deleted Scenes channel.
That's right. That's right. So don't you mice go anywhere. You will be redirected auto-dramatically at the end of this stream over there to Deleted Scenes channel.
Do you have any special guests on tonight?
I might have one or two. Might be one that you're talking to right now.
Maybe. All right.
Actually, I like Darth Plato's hashtag. Hashtag retire Ridley Scott. Yes. I agree. Just go away.
Gladiator 2 does not...
I won't be seeing any more of his movies. I'm done with the man. So...
You saw the Metatron do his take on the Gladiator 2 trailer, right? That was funny.
Yeah, that's not the one, by the way, that I sent you, Jesse Guajara, though. The one I sent you was specifically his reaction to that... were you there, mate? But his next video right after that is the reaction to the Gladiator.
Yeah. Oh, the reason the music is on point for Stranger Things because Winona Ryder is actually a music historian for the 80s. Yeah, I buy that.
Yeah.
Okay. But
that's true, she is. You're right.
Yeah. So then we move on to tomorrow night. You're having a double feature, is that correct?
Not a double feature. I've only got the one lined up. I'm going to be doing the Tom Cruise film Born on the 4th of July. It seems like an appropriate one for Veterans Day.
That's a heartbreaker.
It is.
Yeah, I'll tell you something I heard on the audio commentary off stream that you might find interesting about that movie. All right, and then on Tuesday night, we will be doing another episode of Sparkwood 21. Probably further contemplation of Twin Peaks: The Return, right?
Yep, exactly.
Deleted Scenes had some interesting takes on that last time around.
Mm-hmm.
And then Wednesday, nothing going on this week, though. A few weeks I might be on break.
Afterlife from Sparkwood and 21, Blake 7, Project Avalon.
That's right.
Yeah.
Blake 7.
Yep.
Project Avalon.
Yep.
And then
Thursday night, Netters Network will be talking to some schmo, Curtis Selby, a tired guy, I guess. That'll be this Thursday at 9 Central, 10 Eastern over on Netters Network. And we haven't talked about what we'll be talking about on Friday. What are we going to do?
Well, I don't know. I'll get with you, but I remember I had mentioned this idea of maybe we could pick up some of our favorite Marvel Marvel pop culture moments before the MCU was a thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's not a bad idea.
Do like 5 each or 10 each. We'll figure it out. I'll talk to you after the stream. How about that, huh?
And I've even got a great title picked out.
What?
The Marvel Memories.
Marvel Memories. There we go. That sounds like a plan. Because even if you weren't even reading the comics, there were all sorts of Marvel was everywhere even before it became as big as it is now.
That's absolutely true.
All right.
And I've always said that I was more of a DC fan than a Marvel fan, but I still have some fine Marvel memories.
Yeah, definitely. So I thought that might be interesting, especially while we're in this weird transition point in the MCU. Yep. Talk about what it was like before the MCU. That's an idea. But I'm having to skip tonight, though. I'm too tired as real, but I will be in the chat for someone listening after sleep. Okay. Well, he'll have plenty of other good guests on Other Side of Midnight tonight, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So that's Friday. Saturday, what you doing? Is that
Saturday? I'll be over on Big Al Presents Films with Friends for Ice Pirates.
Oh, that's a classic.
Yes, it is.
Molly Ringwald in that?
I don't think so. Molly Ringwald was in Treasure of the Four Crowns.
Okay, I think I just thought she was in it. That happens sometimes.
Okay. Yeah.
Like when I was watching Logan, I'm like, oh, look, the actor who played Malfoy in the Harry Potter movies is playing the villain with the creepy Southern accent. And I'm like, oh, that's not the actor who played Malfoy. When I was watching it, but he was Malfoy-esque, all right?
Yes.
Whatever that actor's name is. And then, so that brings us to Sunday, where you can check out many things on Deleted Scenes channels, like Outlaw Bill and him do Western Cinema Sundays, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we will bring us to Unscripted with Deleted Scenes, where he has nice, healthy rants. And you can see what's bothering. He had a good one. He actually touched on a topic I decided I wasn't going to cover this week. So I'm kind of glad he did on his channel about celebrity reaction to a certain election.
Yeah, exactly.
I figured, that's all I was seeing on Variety and Deadline. Is like, what's the news? What's the industry news? That's why I was elated with the Star Wars story, because I'm like, hey, it's something. Even though I know it's BS, but anyway. And then you can catch us again on Geeky Geezers, where I don't know what we'll be doing, because hopefully there'll be news this week. We'll probably be talking about. I'm sure there's fallouts going on right now due to certain events that happened this week. We may learn about them this week.
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay. Catch y'all next time, and we have an outro this time, do we not?
Kinda. Go ahead.
We're gonna try it.
Yep.
Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye. Play audio, outro, industry.
You've never been out of college. You don't know what it's like out there. I've worked in the private sector. They expect results.